Good evening, everyone. Welcome to DCJ's press conference featuring partners from People's Climate Summit, COP31 People's Climate Summit, who have traveled from Turkey to be here. My name is Rachita. I'm the global coordinator of DCJ. I want to start by declaring that I have no ties with fossil fuel industries, any high emission industries, or any Zionist entities, and I have no conflict of interest. SB 64 is convening at a time when the contradictions shaping the international climate regime have become impossible to ignore. Across the world, communities are confronting escalating climate impacts alongside deepening militarization, debt crisis, economic instability, shrinking civic space, rising authoritarianism, and the continued concentration of wealth and power in the hands of small number of states, corporations, and financial actors. The climate crisis is unfolding not in isolation, but resulting from a global political order structured by histories and ongoing acts of colonization, imperialism, racial capitalism, patriarchy, extractivism, and the continued sacrifice of peoples and ecosystems in the pursuit of profit for a few. This context matters because climate negotiations are not politically neutral spaces. They are shaped by the same global inequalities that produce the crisis. The countries and corporations most responsible for climate breakdown continue to hold disproportionate power over the terms of climate action, while the peoples and communities most affected continue to fight for their rights and justice. Every major issue on the agenda for SB 64, from climate finance, adaptation, loss and damage to just transition, fossil fuel phase-out, mitigation and false solutions, reflects a broader struggle over rights, responsibility, redistribution, and the future of multilateralism. We are gathered here today because we believe in grassroots civil society organizing and mobilizing around climate, because our communities are at the front line facing the greatest impacts. And in addition, we have the solutions necessary to address the related crises unfolding around the world in the simultaneous moment. As preparations continue for COP31 in Antalya, Turkey, social movements, environmental organizations, labor groups, community initiatives, farmers, pastorals, small landholders, youth, women's organizations, and climate justice advocates are coming together to build the People's Climate Summit to be held in Antalya from 14 to 18 November 2026, alongside the official UN climate negotiations. Building on the tradition of People's Summits historically that have accompanied international climate negotiation for decades, the People's Climate Summit in Turkey is creating a space where communities and social movements can collectively advance demands for climate justice, democracy, peace, and ecological transformation. We are joined with, in our panel today, we are joined with people and activists from who are a part of People's Climate Summit COP31, and we'll hear from them on how you can engage more about the People's Climate Summit, how you can engage, and what is it that People's Climate Summit is actually building on the ground. We'll start with Sezgin Sarı.
Thank you, Rashida. Hello, I'm Sezgin, and good afternoon to all the members of the press, civil society colleagues, and delegates here. I'm Sezgin from Turkey. Here I'm representing the anti-militarism hub of the People's Climate Summit 2026, and I want to declare that I have no affiliation or conflict of interest with any fossil fuel company or military industry or any company that is harmful to nature. So here we are speaking today from the halfway point of SB 64 negotiations in Bonn. And inside these halls, diplomatic delegations are deeply immersed in technical texts on global stocktakes, clean energy transitions, and finance indicators. Yet outside these rooms, the material reality of ecological destruction is accelerating. Later this year, in November, the global climate community will gather in Antalya for COP31. And currently, the host government, Turkey, is presenting a narrative of global climate leadership, speaking on international platforms about climate justice and showcasing domestic initiatives. However, as civil society, we believe that a successful UN climate summit cannot rely on corporate marketing or greenwashing. If COP31 is to deliver a meaningful structural outcome, the international community must firmly confront the host country's actual domestic policies. Reality is defined by surging military expenditures, state-based coal expansion, extractivism, and high-risk nuclear projects. So to ensure that COP31 achieves its genuine progress, we must look clearly at what's happening on the ground in Turkey at the moment. First, I want to address that the critical intersection of the war economy and climate action. Globally, military expenditures are rising rapidly, and the host region is a part of this trend. Substantial public funds are being directed into defense build-ups and the production of advanced military machinery. And these heavily outweigh resources dedicated to climate adaptation and local ecosystem protection. This expanding infrastructure does not bring real security. Instead, its operations fragment ecosystems and drives up carbon emissions that remain completely hidden from global environmental treaties due to long-standing accounting loopholes. Second, despite international pledges to transition away from fossil fuels, coal remains a pillar of Turkey's power sector, accounting for over a third of its electricity generation. And here an important point is that, according to data from Ezber, Turkey passed Germany in 2024 to become the largest producer of coal-fired electricity in Europe. So furthermore, a state purchase guarantee for domestic coal plants is set to run through 2029, and this policy actively subsidizes fossil fuel dependency and ensures that coal emissions will continue to climb. The aggressive extractivism directly impacts local populations. So from the ancient Akbelen forest of Turkey to the Black Sea, open pit mines and toxic extraction projects are threatening agricultural lands and polluting water resources. When local villagers and agricultural communities peacefully assemble to protect their lands, they face a brutal response rather than diplomatic engagement. Third, when confronted with these emissions, the state points to the multi-billion-dollar project in Akkuyu, and it's a nuclear power plant on the Mediterranean coast as a clean solution. But this project is built under foreign build-own-operate model that locks the region into long-term external dependency rather than fostering community-level-led energy democracy. So operating a massive nuclear project in an active earthquake zone that is prone to extreme climate heat waves poses severe long-term dangers for the region. We believe that true climate justice cannot be decoupled from democratic participation, human rights, and the defense of civic space. We cannot build a sustainable future while civic freedoms are restricted and when regional legal frameworks, such as the decisions of European Court, face domestic obstacles, or when conscientious objectors in Turkey are subjected to legal and social restrictions and challenge international human rights standards. So a vibrant and effective People's Climate Summit is essential for COP31 to deliver meaningful action. So to bridge this gap between official rhetoric and the ground reality, our collective platform, the People's Climate Summit, advances three fundamental demands on the road to Antalya this year. First is to resolve the fossil fuel contradiction. We demand that countries hosting global climate talks align their international leadership with concrete domestic commitments to phase out coal and stop fossil fuel expansion. The second point is to protect civic space and local defenders. The civil society groups and rural communities in Turkey defending ecosystems in Anatolia are protecting our shared climate. So the host nation, Turkey, must ensure an open, democratic environment where activists, local populations, and marginalized groups can organize and make their voice heard without fear of legal reprisals. And the third point is to address militarism within climate frameworks. We must openly recognize that military expansion and climate justice cannot coexist. We demand structural transparency regarding the carbon footprint of global military forces. We demand welfare, not warfare. So we invite all the international delegates, civil society organizations, and journalists attending COP31 to look beyond the press releases of the official venue, engage directly with the local realities, and listen to the frontline struggles. When you go to COP31, venue in Antalya, take a look at the huge parking lot behind the building. It was a fertile land with orchards just a month ago, and it was taken from the locals just to build a parking lot for COP31. We believe that this is not a climate policy. So we issue a strong, open, and urgent call to the global community to join us at the People's Climate Summit from 14 to 18 November in Antalya. So let's collectively build a shared front for life, challenge the false solutions of coal and nuclear power, demand demilitarization, and ensure that those who are most affected by the crisis are the ones who define our collective future. So thank you very much. And now Ela will talk more about how we organize the People's Climate Summit and the organization structure. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I am Ela Nehir, and I'm from Turkey, Istanbul. And I am here as a volunteer from the People's Climate Summit. Now, as Sezgin has mentioned, I will talk about how the People's Climate Summit is structured and how we are organizing currently. Well, firstly, I'd like to say that it is horizontal, our organizational structure, which means that the leadership is not concentrated in one person or in one group. So no single person or organization can make decisions in behalf of the entire collective. All decisions are made in the open meetings by consensus and through transparent processes. Secondly, it is not a hierarchical organization, but we do have a clear structure, and our structure mainly operates through three bodies, and those three bodies are the Assembly, Logistics Coordination, and the Political Coordination. So the Assembly is where all the participating organizations and individuals coordinate the strategy. Logistics Coordination handles the practical, financial, and technical infrastructure according to the needs of the Assembly. Lastly, Political Coordination develops our shared political framework and our thematic content. So our thematic substance is at our core. Our political work is organized through thematic hubs. And those thematic hubs work autonomously in specific areas. And these areas cover ecological destruction and ecosystems, climate justice and historical responsibility, resilience and rights, labor, democracy, law and rights, gender, bodily autonomy and discrimination, emission reduction, people's peace and anti-militarism, nuclear opposition, youth health, and animal liberation. So each coalition sets its own agenda, its own analysis and policy positions, and contributes to the summit's shared political output. Also, the summits and those hubs are supported by our working groups. And the working groups, they handle the operational side according to the needs of the hubs, like communications, logistics, financing, local organizing, international relations, legal support, and more. Last but not least, our values are non-negotiable, so we do not accept support from fossil fuel companies or greenwashing resources. So we apply a zero-tolerance policy against discrimination, and safe space is our structural commitment.
Thank you so much, Ela. That is our presentation for now, but I want to ask from the floor if anyone has any questions. You can please raise your hand, identify yourself, and ask. Any questions? Okay, so maybe I can ask like a couple of questions if it's okay. Maybe, Sezgin, you can tell us a little more about what are the plans for the summit in the lead up to COP31, and then how is it that international groups can attach more with what People's Climate Summit is doing on the ground?
Thank you. First of all, we will host the climate summit in a conference hall in Antalya, in the same city where COP31 will take place. So we are working on logistics, and we want to host the international community who comes to both the COP31 and the People's Climate Summit to host them and bring their agenda to the climate summit. And here I'm staying in the Bonn camp, Bonn Climate Camp, just back doors here. If you have been there, it's an amazing place, mostly organized by the young people, and spending time there is amazing. So I think that gives organizing the People's Climate Summit, we believe that will also give a chance to the youth coming from around the world to attend COP31, who doesn't have badges or who doesn't have accommodation or underfunded, to be supported by the People's Climate Summit in that sense. So we want to welcome everyone to Antalya to join or watch COP31 or to see what's happening really on the ground at the People's Climate Summit. So that's the first I can say about the organization. And the second, Turkey will also host another important summit this year. It is in July, the NATO summit. So as since we believe that military spending is not a solution, and we have to cut military spending and forward these funds to climate justice and mitigation and adaptation. So we demand from the government to cut military spending. And also we are organizing a peace summit in Ankara on 4 to 5 July in the weekend before the NATO summit. So that's also a step forward to COP31 because we are organizing intersectionally. So in Turkey, as far as I observed also in some part of Europe, climate movement and anti-militarism movement is a bit fragmented. So we want to bring all the democratic struggles in Turkey together at the People's Climate Summit. So we are trying to build a line that welcomes villagers, anti-military movements, climate movements, gender movements, all together at the Climate Summit to raise their voice. And for the international community here, we asked to join the international organization of the People's Climate Summit. We are doing fine in Turkey. We are organized in several cities, establishing assemblies. But we have to raise our voice also around the globe too. So we are asking for the participation from international organizations who has no relation with greenwashing and fossil fuel companies to join us to organize this together and raise the voice of the global south and the people who are the least represented at COP31.
Thank you so much, Sezgin. That's helpful to know. And maybe Ela, if you have some context on like how the previous People's Summits and this summit is connected and why it's important.
Well, it is important in the sense that we think it can be a platform for the NGOs and the climate activists and the people who are interested can raise their voices. And we are hoping that the subjects that we are covering and also our political context can also play a role during the COP31 negotiations. So that's what we are hoping.
Okay, thanks, Ela. Okay.
Hi, this is Tayin Zabuncu from WWF Turkey. I was wondering if you could give a bit more information about your engagement with other organizations from around the world. With how many organizations that you engaged with so far, and how is it going? And also your engagements and also constituencies from local movements in Turkey.
Mm-hmm. First, the initiative was started in Turkey by 3 umbrella organizations. One of them is Climate Justice Coalition, which has like more than 100 signatories under it, including trade unions, different NGOs in Turkey. One of them is that, and the second is Ecology Union in Turkey. So these are the umbrella organizations that include several other organizations in Turkey. Also, from the international point, we have relations with the organizations that have supported and also joined BELAM. So we want to carry the experience we received in Glasgow and BELAM, the other People's Climate Summit before. So we want to include them in the process too. So we are not just organizing a separate People's Climate Summit Turkey, we want to carry the tradition that is already established in Belém and Glasgow. So we are also in connection and with the participation of the organizations that have organized the People's Climate Summits before COP31 in Antalya.
Thanks, Sezgin. Any other questions? Okay, so we will close our press conference here just to share more that DCJ is also working with the People's Climate Summit to bring more grassroots civil society organizations from around the world to connect with the process. We are in the midst of setting up an international committee process where more regional organizations and other social movement organizations can join and help strengthen the People's Climate Summit process and bring lived realities from civil society and communities from around the world. A lot of us are united around most of the on all the major issues that have been presented by People's Climate Summit here, especially militarization and anti-imperialism, which are big concerns and big areas that a lot of social movements have been organizing around at the intersection of climate justice. Please make sure to visit the People's Climate Summit's Instagram account for more information, for regular information. They host a lot of meetings on the ground as well regularly that you can connect with. And please be on the lookout for more information as we start building the international process. You can also visit DCJ's website as more information is available. And finally, as Global Campaign to Demand Climate Justice, we want to share that we do believe that that while we engage in this process, it's the communities on the ground who are in the front line of the crisis that truly hold the solutions. We are made of indigenous peoples and right holders who have been the stewards of these land, water, rivers, oceans, forests for the longest time and know how to take care of this planet and our home and have the solutions to fight this crisis. And so we are more deserving to be in this space than anyone else. And it is important that the governments and the other stakeholders listen to our solutions so that in our collective fight for climate justice. So we'll end here. Thank you so much for joining. And please also join us tomorrow for a press conference that looks deeper into other issues and negotiations here. And then we also have an action tomorrow